Shortly before 3 a.m., a restaurant employee at Denny's at 225 and Ritchie observed the suspect in this case pointing a handgun to the head of the night manager. And that individual got on the phone and contacted the police dispatcher and reported an aggravated robbery in progress. And there was 3 officers who responded initially. 1 officer pulled up in front of the restaurant and 2 officers pulled up behind the strip center next door to the east. The suspect apparently exited the front of the restaurant. He walked up to a vehicle that he had arrived in, which we would learn later on had been stolen from the Baytown area the night before. And as the suspect was approaching his vehicle, he changed directions and went toward the strip center where the officers were behind the building, although the suspect was not aware of it, and the officers at that particular moment were not exactly aware of exactly where the officer was. The suspect walked around the end of the building at the strip center and came virtually face to face with the officers, and a witness who was an employee of the restaurant who was outside of the restaurant and behind the restaurant observed the suspect elevate a handgun, point it in the direction of the officers, and the officers responded with several rounds of gunfire and apparently struck the suspect multiple times in the front torso. The suspect dropped to the ground, and he was pronounced dead by ambulance personnel.
So,
Go ahead.
Chief, are you releasing the name of the suspect at this point, or no?
Oh, not at this point. We intend to release the name of the suspect. We do have his identity, but from what I understand, the next of kin have not yet been notified, so we're going to withhold it until some of his family have been contacted and informed of the situation.
Now, according to this, witnesses or workers at Denny's said they saw the suspect point a gun at the police officers. Did the suspect, in fact, have a weapon of some sort?
He did. It was a semi-automatic handgun. And the employee who observed that was outside at the rear of the restaurant next door.
And you don't have an exact number of shots that were fired by the
I don't at this point, but if I were to make an estimate, I would say perhaps 10. I'm not really sure, though.
By each, or?
No, total, between the two, about 10 shots.
What did the employees say happened in the restaurant?
I understand that the suspect actually came in and ordered a meal, and he apparently was engaging in small talk with one or more of the employees. And at the time of the robbery, he was actually the only customer left in the store. There had been 2 other people there who had left prior to the robbery. But one of the employees stated that rather unexpectedly they observed the suspect pointing a handgun to the head of the night manager. And that individual then contacted the police department and reported an aggravated robbery in progress. And initially, 3 officers immediately responded to that. 1 officer pulled up in front of the restaurant, and 2 officers pulled up along the strip center, at the rear of the strip center next door to the east.
No one injured inside the restaurant?
We don't have any report of injuries at all, other than to the suspect.
Can you release the names of the officers, however?
I will release that, if necessary, but at this point, I prefer not to, and it's pretty much in accordance with our typical custom not to do that until perhaps several days later.
Because Chief, talk about the response time. It seems as though they got out there pretty quickly.
Right, they did respond and arrive pretty quickly, but the exact time I really don't know. Obviously, when an officer is in a position to arrive at the scene of a robbery when it's still in progress, or let's say immediately thereafter, the response time must be pretty efficient.
Is that area known to have robberies or burglaries or anything like that? Higher than?
I wouldn't say that particular area is necessarily any more prone to robberies than perhaps others in the city.
And this, I know that Pasadena had an incident where somebody tried to rob a bank. Are you seeing more people trying to steal money like that recently?
Well, we certainly have in the last couple of weeks, because we did have a bank robbery at Chase recently, and then this robbery today, or rather, well, it's early this morning. And then we did have a robbery of another bank at HEB just last week. So there has been an increase in armed robberies here lately, but I don't know if that's necessarily enough to call it a trend.
Do you know how many that is for this year?
I don't have that information right offhand, but we can get it for you.
This perpetrator has a record. Can you explain a little bit about that?
I can tell you that this individual is a registered sex offender, but as far as the other criminal activity he may have been involved in, I don't have that information at hand, but I can point to the fact that he was driving a stolen truck in this particular case.
Can you give any details about the sex offender part?
I really don't have any. I just know he is a registered sex offender.
Can you go over the scenario where the confrontation occurred? Did they give verbal commands, or what did they do?
One of the officers did holler something to the suspect. Exactly what he said, I don't know at the moment, but the suspect was on foot, and he was walking away from his vehicle toward the strip center next door. And two of the officers were behind that strip center, and he came around the corner and was essentially face-to-face with the officers. And the shooting distance between the officers and the suspect was estimated between 15 to 25 feet.
There was no one inside the vehicle waiting for him, like a.
No, the suspect vehicle was unoccupied, and it was found to have been stolen from the Baytown area sometime yesterday evening.
Do you know if the suspect lived in Baytown or did he live in Pasadena?
I don't know his home address.
Anything else found inside the truck or on the suspect that's unusual, like drugs or anything like that?
I haven't heard anything about drugs, but there was approximately $280 in cash, found in the vicinity of where his body is, or was.
That was stolen money, you know?
Well, it's certainly believed to be, because he did have another amount of money on his person, actually, like in his pockets. But there was money found in the vicinity of where the body was, about $280.
And he never fired a shot.
He did not. According to a witness who was behind and outside the restaurant, that witness observed the suspect elevate the handgun, pointing in the direction of the officers, and the officers responded with several rounds of gunfire, struck the suspect primarily in the torso and the front, and the suspect dropped to the sidewalk, and he was deceased where he fell.
I guess, how is the night manager doing this morning?
I understand that the night manager may have sought medical treatment. I understand that particular individual wasn't feeling well at the conclusion of all this. Exactly what the ailment was, I don't know. And as far as I know, that person was not injured.
What happens to the officers that were involved in this case?
As a matter of course, they are on administrative leave with pay, and there are some administrative processes that have to be carried out as a matter of routine. And upon completion of those, assuming the officers are suited to return to duty, they will be returned to full duty. And one of the things that they have to do is requalify with their service weapons.
As far as you know, they followed procedure.
Yes, as near as I can tell, they have done that. But in any case, the DA's office shooting team and the medical examiner's office, passing the PD Internal Affairs, and detectives are conducting independent investigations to determine exactly what the circumstances were and how this occurred.